you're on the mound, bottom of the ninth, you're up a run, bases loaded. Jeff Rancour comes to the plate. How are you pitching him?
Well, it's no secret. It's no secret. I mean, it's really about who's going to be luckiest, because I'm going to throw fastballs and I'm probably going to throw a cheesy breaking ball. And if I get lucky enough that he fouls off enough fastballs, maybe I'll get lucky on a breaking ball. But Brinchy, I think you took me deep. Didn't you take me deep in?
Billy, you might not remember this, but one of the coolest moments of my career was when we switched teams and I went to New York and you came to Atlanta, and we were tied 1-1 in the top of the ninth, and I took you Oppo Taco at Turner Field.
Yeah, that's right.
But walking on the tunnel after the game, Billy sought me out and said, dude, that was a pretty cool moment for you.
It's Kirk Herbstreit.
Oh, Sean McVay.
Kerry Walsh Jennings.
Here we got
Greg Gazan.
John Isner.
Ryan Howard.
Greg McElroy.
Got Drew.
Chris Sale.
Mark DeRosa.
Cade Klubnik. Derek White.
Reese Davis.
Marty Smith.
Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about Booster. If you got kids playing sports in middle school or high school, Booster is the easiest way to raise money for their team. From uniforms and equipment to travel expenses, Booster makes fundraising simple and fun for schools and sports programs. Check them out at choosebooster.com. That's choosebooster.com, or just click the link in our description to see how your team can boost their fundraising this season.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff, along with Brad and Britt. How are we doing, boys?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Another week, another really strong episode here.
It is, yeah. The weather's changing.
Yeah, I love it. It's football weather finally.
It is football weather. I am excited today because I've gotten to know this guy over the years now and love everything he stands for, who he is. And I'll say this, he was one of my welcome to the big league moments. When you play minor league baseball, you face a lot of good pitchers. I was 21, had been up in the big leagues for a week, and my first road trip was in New York. And this guy comes trugging out of the bullpen, all 5'2" of them, and I'm sitting there going, all right. So I finally get it. Enter Sandman's coming on.
Yeah.
And he strikes me out on 3 pitches, 100, back foot slider. And I'm like, all right, so this is what the big leagues is all about. But winning the Hall of Fame this year, man, not only a Hall of Fame baseball player, but a Hall of Fame dude. Billy Wagner, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Well, you're too kind. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, man. So first off, congrats, man. I know life doesn't change because you are as down to earth as there is, but talk about the moment for you and your family this summer up in Cooperstown.
I don't even know if you can put those into words. I mean, walking into an arena that has all your heroes, I think that is, unique chaos of just, our days were starting at like 6:30 and they were ending at 12:30, and you were constantly stressed about your speech. And everything went so fast. You wanted to spend time talking to all these guys and, being able to talk to, your heroes that you're sitting around. And, man, it went so fast. We drove up, and then when we were driving back, it was like taking deep breaths going, oh my gosh, do you remember this? Because I kept saying, I hope somebody's videoing this, because I couldn't remember the parties. I couldn't remember all the things that was going on at the time, because it was so much going on. And, that happy chaos of just making sure that you were able to talk to, pretty much just kind of shake hands with people and making sure that, your family was taken care of. So it was a lot going on. I tell you, I think about it now, and it's just one of the greatest moments to be able to stand there with the greats behind you, and and just to be in that group is, something I don't even know if you can explain it. I think the older guys do such a great job by talking about the privilege to be there. And Johnny Bench is the first person who really starts to talk to me, and he called me about every couple weeks before the ceremony and asked if I needed anything. And then, you go through the whole ceremony and you're getting your picture, and all of a sudden you get summoned by one of the guys going, "Hey, you need to go up on the the porch and talk and sit with Johnny." And he sits you in a rocking chair and you just stare at the lake, and he goes, "Just know, no matter all the pressure that you went through, the ups and downs, the goods and bads, the struggle to get to the Hall of Fame, you're now a Hall of Famer." And I mean, Johnny Bench is telling you these things and you're just like, oh my gosh. And,
Wow.
Sandy Koufax is walking in, you're standing there with, I was really 5 years old trying to figure this out. That's what I felt like the whole time. Should I really be here? Is this real? How's this working out? So, it was a dream come true, but I tell you, I'm looking forward to going back just so I can actually enjoy the time to see what it really is about.
Did Billy Wagner, growing up in Marion, Virginia, sitting in his bed at night, did he ever dream that he'd be considered one of the greatest to ever play?
Oh gosh, no, absolutely. I mean, Jeff is so right. I mean, for most of my career in high school, and I played multiple sports in high school, and I was just playing to survive. And so there was no thought of like, oh, you know what, guys, I'm going to be a superstar. I'm going to be a Hall of Famer. There was never, I was like, I'm just hoping I survive today so I can get to tomorrow and then just enjoy that moment in itself. And, there was never, I think when it really came to like, fruition, it was like, when you get put on the ballot and all of a sudden you're thinking, wait a minute, maybe? Is this possible? And it just kind of, and then when it hits, you've had these moments. I've said it multiple times. I've been on my tractor driving around and practicing the speech, or in the shower, practicing what I'd say or how we go. And I feel like there was when I finally got up to say my speech, there was nothing I'd practiced. There was nothing I'd practiced. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be so much easier.
That's great.
I was going to say that. Is it hard to enjoy the weekend because in the back of your mind, the whole time, what's coming Sunday?
Yeah, it is. And you have no idea how to even show up. You don't dress code. You just don't know how to do it. It's like when you go to the big leagues for the first time and you're in the Kmart suit and everybody else is, in the Versace, and you just don't know how you're supposed to go about. Do I act like I'm a Hall of Famer? Or how do I go about this? Or, I'm sitting here, it's the unknowing and not feeling like, when you get called up to the big leagues, don't act like you've been here, say, yes, sir, sit over there, do what you're supposed to do, keep your mouth shut. And so, you're going into a different fraternity. And so you're not sure how to even get there and act. And, after you start getting through it, you realize that it's completely a different clubhouse than what we were used to when we were players, because you don't have to impress anybody. You don't have to carry yourself some way. You just have to show up and be you. And then, that was something that I learned as we went, and that, all the heroes that you saw playing and stuff like that, is completely different. That competitive nature that we played against each other was completely different. Everybody was truly excited for you. Everybody was, really nice to you and your family and all these things. And so you just want to make sure, that you're doing it right. So I'm looking totally forward to next year. I'm taking a deep breath and playing golf and not feeling like, oh my gosh, it was unique.
So Billy, one final question about this. You mentioned sitting and talking on the porch with Johnny Bench. Who was somebody else that, you've met a lot of people in your career, but who was somebody else you were looking forward to meeting and chatting with that you got to live that out?
There were so many. I really feel I'm such a traditionalist. I love baseball in its purest forms. And, I was looking forward to just, sitting and talking to the older guys, the guys that, my grandparents, I hate that, the Robin Roberts and I hate that Brooks Robinson had passed away. I hate that the older guys had passed, because I looked forward to having that moment to sit there and hear their stories. It was great at the end, and you have this dinner at the end of the whole ceremony, and you're sitting there, and I sat down and I sat with Jim Leland, you just pick your seats random. And so I'm sitting with Jim Leland, Tony La Russa, Billy Williams, Johnny Bench, Rob Manfred, and Jeff Bagwell. And there was nothing I could say. I just sit there and, and you're looking around, there's Ken Griffey Jr. and there's, Raleigh Fingers, there's Sandy Koufax. George Brett. All these things, you're sitting there and you're just, shocked that, you're in this, and you can't really put it into words because it's just something you've never been through, and you're in awe of just sitting here looking around and stuff. Talking about that, I'm hoping that since the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee kind of put their guys out, I've got a couple guys I'm really hoping are going to join us with Donnie Baseball and my all-time favorite player Dale Murphy. So I'm hoping that those guys are going to get their just due now, because they're overdue.
Oh man, speaking of Donnie Baseball, man, finally gets to the World Series, and they had a cool, Fox captured a great picture of him just sitting on the bench after, and Bichette came behind him and gave him a hug. Yeah. I was like, to get that close, you've waited 40 something years.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was an unbelievable World Series though, man. It was so good for baseball.
It was one of the better ones where, every team had to put everything out there. They couldn't lay back. They had to do everything. And it was neat seeing guys give up that ego to go back out there. I know I pitched yesterday, but I'm going to go back out there because I want to win this game. I know I'm a starter, but I'm going to go back out there. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I think that just showed that, that's when you're looking at these kids and people, look, that's when the win is the most important, that you're laying it out there,
Yeah, that's awesome. So to kind of tell our listeners a little bit before we dig in, kind of what you're doing now. I know you're with your coaching the boys and stuff, but just kind of where you're at.
Well, when I retired in 2010, I took on high school coaching. And so I've been coaching high school baseball at a private school up here in Charlottesville, Virginia, called the Miller School of Albemarle. And I've been doing that for the last 14 years. And so I've coached my three boys. My youngest is a senior this year. And then I coach travel ball. I've coached at every level, I feel like, Little League, the travel ball, the high school. I volley for my college at Ferrum. And so, I'm in all realms of baseball right now. And, I talk a lot with Jeff Bagwell about the pro scene and things like that. But, I'm just all in on youth sports, I guess I should say. That's my love. I think the purest form of baseball right now and sports are at this high school area. And I'm heavy in the ABCA, and I actually have a podcast with a couple high school coaches, Todd Fitzgerald at Stoneman Douglas, and guys like that. And we do it every other Monday. It's called GBCN. It's the Global Baseball Coaches Network. And we deal with coaches all over, the world, really. We just have questions. And this, last Monday we had Chili Davis on just talking about baseball and how we can improve it. And, we're not judgmental. We just try to promote and push the game in the best way we can.
Billy, you mentioned you've coached all three of your boys in high school and probably younger as well. We get a lot of messages coming from parents who are trying to balance that whole dynamic of being a coach, but also being the parent. What would you say to those parents? What's been your experience, and what's really challenging about wearing both hats, and what's a really positive thing about doing that?
Wow, what a great question. I think I learned because I had three boys. My oldest, Will, was probably did not get the benefits of having just a coach. He got dad with it, and that me learning to be a coach was and be dad, because you just expect your kids to know a little bit better. You have this false idea that, they should know how to do this. And so early, I was probably not a very good coach, just because there was an expectation of not that I was saying, oh, you should be better or any of those things, but they're around it so much more. He was in the big league clubhouse. He knew all these things. And when he didn't do something, I was like shocked, like, how did that not work? And so I learned that, going through that, what I really enjoyed about coaching was that I wanted him to ask me questions. I didn't want to deal with that. And so early into this, I said, I had an assistant coach and I said, you're going to coach him. I'm going to be dad. I'm not making any play. We're going to ride home and I want him to go, what do you think, Dad? What did I need to do, Dad? I didn't want to go, oh my gosh, how did you not get to that ball? Oh my gosh, why didn't you swing at that? Because that's the inclination of a parent to be, you want them to be so successful. And so I learned that right away, you know what? You'll figure this out. You're going to fail a lot. This game is really hard. Quit worrying about, today. I mean, every parent wants to worry about their stats and stuff like that. I don't know stats. I don't do stats. And so, but as I've moved on in those over the time, it's gotten easier because I can go to my kid during the game and go, hey, you doing well? Keep your head up, keep battling. It's all right. Just be positive the whole time. And then, he would come to me, the kids would come to me and start asking the questions that they needed, not going, oh my God, I got to talk to Dad. I know he's going to be, I know he's going to be sitting here critiquing me. And it's, as a coach too, I wear sunglasses, and I wear sunglasses not to watch the kids. I watch sunglasses to watch the parents. And I sit there and I watch the parents because then I know how to coach the kid. And so I thought about that with how I was coaching my kids because, I want to be the parent, not the coach, the parent, the disciplinarian. I want to be the guy who, when you ride home, hey, good, bad, and the other, you're frustrated. I know you are. Let's talk about it. But it's hard because, you want them to be successful. You want them to do these things because they love the game. And, but I love the time that I got to spend with them because they love the game. I think they love the game more than I did personally. I was a football player and they just loved being around it. I mean, to this day, they'll show up. We've got this week off from baseball. We don't do any baseball activities. Everything's pretty much locked up. They're actually doing yoga, and they'll be here. They'll show up, and I'm like, hey, you got to go. I mean, they like being around the field. So, but it's just, getting them outside and just, I'm glad that I've learned this because it's helped me talk to the parents that I've had to deal with because as parents they want their kid to be successful. They want them to have the happiness and joys and, and they never want them to fail and things like that. But every coach had to go through coaching their kid to some extent. And it's helped me be a better coach for the kids that outside my kids, because I can sit there and go, hey, I see your dad, I see your mom, I see these things. So it helps me figure out how I've got to coach you.
You said something that I love. We talked last week and you told me a funny story about a team being out there and it was freezing cold and they were practicing. I've heard you numerous times. I talk a lot on here about multi-sport athletes, but the realization is there's plenty of kids that just want to play baseball, right? That's all they want to do. So what's your message to the parents of what you just said? We shut down, like you're done. The kids need a break. It's freezing cold. What's your message to these parents that think more is better?
It's a tough thing too. It's a tough message because, they are right away on social media to say, hey, look at this 12-year-old who's throwing 90. Look at this kid doing this. I need my kid to be ready so that when we play, 13U travel ball or 14U or all this stuff, that they got to be ready. And they forget that this is not a job. The problem that it stems from also is that, we don't have a governing body that really dictates scheduling. And so all these kids are pretty much forced to deal with the social madness of saying, well, I can only get this scholarship if I play this and I do all these activities, and you take all these lessons and you keep beating these kids to death with it. And so, my advice to the kids early is just, hey, enjoy. And there is a time you do have to kind of specialize. I hate to say it, but because you go to college, you need to be able to have enough reps to play. And when you're a junior and senior going into in high school, then you have to kind of to sit there and take a step back. But early, I think the greatest thing for me is I love football. I love football, and I was way too little to be playing it. I think I broke arms and collarbones. I mean, concussions, but I love to do it. But it taught me a different thing about me, how I could be tough enough to deal with pushing and being pushed and being uncomfortable playing against these different things, and how my body had to evolve to be able to handle these things. And I think that's where basketball and these other sports, you look at some of the guys with the best feet, they played soccer. They may have been basketball or football players, but they played soccer, and they move real well. I think there's something to that. But I think that unfortunately there is a point that college coaches will, say that they love the multi-sport athlete. And the next thing you know, you go, well, how many you got on your team? Well, I've got a few. Well, where are they? Well, they're sitting there on the bench. Oh, okay. And I think that's what throws parents off a little bit. It's like, well, I want my kid to play, so he's got to get reps. They're not willing to do some of these things. So I think there's just there's a disconnect with parents and, the whole process they want to get to, and the joy of the game. I mean, I enjoyed the game because it was the next sport to play, not, I got to play baseball, I got to do this. I never felt like I had to. It was just I got to. And so playing football and baseball and basketball and all those things allowed me to relax. And but granted, I'm ancient, and so when you look back, I can't imagine hearing that about a Chipper Jones in Florida, or A-Rod in Florida, all these schools, because I didn't have any idea what these guys were doing. Now they have access to all these things in the media that now they just get overwhelmed with, I'm behind. How am I going to do this? It's tough.
I got a follow-up question. You talked about parents, and I'm a former high school athletic director, and I have my opinions, but if you could take a moment and really describe, and I guess from a high school standpoint, what the perfect high school parent should be like. As a high school head coach, what would you want the parents to be like at the games? How they act at the games, how they act in the off season. Like, what would you, if you could draw it up, how would you draw it up?
I like the parents enjoy the games. I would like to say in a perfect world that they cheer and they're cheering for our team. They're doing all these things, not judgmental, not overthinking, not talking about other players. I would like to see that, but it just doesn't work like that. What I would like, and I do this at times, I'll ask parents, we'll sit in a group and I go, how many of you played high school baseball? And, you get there, I did. How many of you went to college and played? I did. How many of you were All-American? And, you might get one here or whatever, I was all conference, whatever. Well, how many of you played pro ball? You'll get one or two, they'll do this. And then how many of you got to the big leagues? Then it's like this. And you start going, well, remember, see how hard this game is? It's not, everything's that easy. So I think, describing to parents how hard this game is to play on a daily basis has helped me with parents. And but I'm also, when I meet with parents, I want the parents to look at me and go, hey, Johnny is the best player on your team. He is so good. He should be probably playing every position. Because I want you to think your kid's the best kid. I do. But I'm also the one who's going to sit there and go, I appreciate that, but he's not. And you have to be honest. I think coaches are scared to be honest with the parent because they're like, well, you don't like him. He's not good. That's why he's not playing. He's not this. He's not that. And it's really not that. I want you to know, to be honest. There's no coach that doesn't like the best players playing. That's what it is. But for us, we play 40 games, and I find a way to get all my kids in these games to play in some extent to to their level to play. And I mean, you can't take a kid who's not very strong and put them in against the number one team in the nation and go, hey, I want you to have this experience, because this ain't going to be a good experience. This ain't going to be a good experience. And I think parents are like, well, why didn't Johnny play against Stoneman Douglas? Well, did you see Gio throwing? He's throwing 97 miles an hour. Do I want him to get killed? You know, but I also think there's a purpose of sitting here growing the game within yourself. And so we play 40 games, and we have games that structure that I can get guys in so that they have the experience they're looking for, because there is an experience to be had. Being a good teammate, being the glue, being consistent, being that guy who's like, hey, I'm always ready. Coach, you know, he's not sitting there going, when am I playing, coach? When? But you sit down there and go, hey, Johnny, you're going to play. Hey, get your bag, you're going to run bases. I mean, I'll do that to an 8th grader, to a freshman in games, and they're looking, I'm like, figure it out. Here you go. You're a base runner. Or go play this. There's in situations where they have to stay engaged in the game. But with parents, you have to explain to them that it's the process. I'm building for the next journey. I want to build the foundation for your kid. And, you know, a lot of these kids are going to go to college and they're not going to play their freshman year. And as a parent, you're like, oh my God, Johnny was all, you know, Gatorade player of the year. And he was this and that and the other. And guess what? Coach, not good. We're going to get in the transfer portal, because they forget that they have to compete. And so for me, when I deal with parents, you know, I don't mind having an open door policy of letting them come in and saying, hey, you know what? You're a bad coach. You're this, you're that. Because a lot of times I might agree with them. But I want them to understand that I'm here for your kid's success. I'm not here for my success. And you know, I'm in a different situation, because my job's not, I'm not an English teacher. I'm not a math teacher. I'm teaching you a life lessons of showing up every day, work ethic, commitment, accountability every day. And so that's what I'm teaching your kid, regardless if you're a baseball player or whatever, or your life goes on to be about sports. It's really about teaching you how to be a good young man, or a good young lady. I coach a young lady, and to be a good person. And a lot of times you can't figure out how to coach them with the parent until you met the parent. There's so many times I meet the parent and go, oh, yeah.
Now that lines up.
But I ain't afraid to say it. But I'm not afraid to say those things, because every kid wants them to play in the big leagues. I sit a kid down, he wants to go to the big leagues. That's the driving force. So then you can kind of understand what you're working with. But, you know, I'm pretty open with parents. And I mean, I've had parents wear me out. They've worn me out about a move or their kid, you know, and I tell them, you know, hey, I get it. I know you're frustrated. Did you see your kids' practices? What do you want me to do? You have to learn how to produce when you have the opportunity. When you don't practice well and you don't producing, it limits what you can do. And it's a hard thing. You know, it's a hard thing for your parent. And I've been there when my son went to Liberty University, played for Scott Jackson. Freshman year, he goes out there and he starts the first 3 games, doesn't see the field for the next month and a half. And then he gets thrown in against UNC and get that 9th inning at bat, and the guy's throwing 95, and he looked like he never swung a bat. You know, that frustration is on every parent, but understanding the process of what that you're building, you know, has to be, you know, the main focus. And it's not an easy focus. It's not an easy thing to sit there and watch your kid fail. And but you want them to continue to show up. And so for me, building good people is pretty much the idea, and accountability and things like that. But it's hard. I can't ask parents to, I can't say, well, let's justify everything, because it's not a justifiable, easy means to any of this.
There is one person and one person only who will define your kid's dreams, and that's your kid.
If you want something, like, you have to work for it.
Your ability to counter a weapon is paramount to your game development.
Or just losing perspective on what youth sports are really about.
Teach your kid the value of winning, but not at all costs.
Get a lot of questions on when an athlete should start strength training.
If your athlete follows my protocol, they are going to have better energy than ever before.
It can't come to you when you're born and say, you got character. You got to build that.
You can win, but if you're not really impacting lives, I think you lose.
I'm curious, we're talking about this era that we're in with, playing year round, specializing early, all that. You talked about it being different when you played. You said, I'm ancient, but you've just gone through this journey with your kids and they're playing at the highest level. So what did that look like with your kids? What did they do baseball wise? How much did they play? When did they specialize? I'm just curious about some of that.
Well, I think my oldest specialized in baseball about 7 years old. And it had nothing to do with me, but he was in the big league locker rooms. And so he's seeing Jim Tomey and he's seeing all these guys and he's like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be right there. And so to a fault, that was what he's about. But he played basketball, and things like that. Mom was not going to let him have anything to do with football. No chance. I mean, I would have loved to watch all that, but she was like, nope, not my babies, not happening. So, but I did buy him football gear and we'd go out in the backyard and I'd let brothers beat up on each other. So they figured out some stuff. And I mean, I'm sure there's some bad feelings still there, but I wanted them to enjoy what they're doing. I wanted them to understand, that this was a game. But going through that process with all of them, you had that moment where they had their growing pains, where they had, growth plate issues, where they were sitting there and they go, damn, my arm's hurting. And you knew right away, all right, well, guess what? We're going to shut you down. You're not going to do this. And we're just going to, maybe you just hit but you can't throw, or maybe you don't maybe you just become a good teammate. Maybe you're the base runner. But I think every kid has a thought, as long as it's their thoughts and what they want to do. I don't really get upset about it. I mean, I've got kids in the high school team that go, Coach, I'm going to go play basketball. I'm like, go do it, buddy. Let's lock it in. But know that, I want you to do this at an early rate, because when you get into that point where you haven't been committed in this day and age, the stress that they're going through with, well, I haven't been committed and I need to go to this camp and go to that camp and all these things, that becomes that gray area where I'm worried about how much is too much. Trust these things. That's where learning that JUCOs and Division IIIs are a good road, and that, you may not be the finished product you want to be right now, and you may need to do a few things. But for me, it was been pretty easy for me because my kids just love baseball. And I mean, and I think, we've tried to say it's not about me, but I think in some ways there's nothing I could do about them going, I want to be a baseball player like Dad.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to worry about it a little bit and stuff, but you never tried to put them into a point where you have to be a baseball player. You have to do this. You want to do it? All right, just be all in. Go play, have fun. Don't overthink it. But it's so much. It was easier said than done at times. If it was up to my wife, they would all play basketball because she was a college basketball player at Ferrum. So they would all play basketball way before baseball.
I got a question, because you said something that's funny with just baseball. So I hate fall baseball. I hate it with a passion. These guys know it. I know people do. We had Greg Olson on here, and he coaches his son's football team in Charlotte, but also coaches a travel baseball team. And he told us, about a month ago, we had him on, a month and a half, and he said, if I don't do anything in the fall, I'll lose 4 or 5 of my players because they don't play football and they want to do something. So I'm curious because, Braden, my son, plays football, and he's got a few guys on his team that play baseball, and they'll do football for 3 straight weeks. Won't pick up a baseball, won't be doing anything. And then all of a sudden they'll go play 5 games on a Sunday and in a tournament. And they're going to get hurt. they're not going to do well. And so my whole thing is like, what is your message to these coaches that's like, hey, let's just play in 2 random tournaments in the fall? I don't know what that does. I really don't.
I think my thing is, if you play football, you're not going to play baseball.
Yeah.
You need to be bought in. You can't train. You can't be bought in. You can't be all in if you're going, well, listen, I'm the quarterback, but I'm going to play Friday night. Then I'm going to roll out on Saturday and Sunday and do this or vice versa. I'm going to be beat up. I'm sore. You can't give me or the team what you want to do, because there might be a handful of kids who are just, I'm all about it. And then there's this other thing that they're all in, and the guy stepping into football comes up to the plate and he can't get it done. It's not that you don't have those guys that are still super athletes that can walk out there and do things, but you are running the risk. I would rather be all in or all out, because I agree with you. I think there is the injury prone, and I know the peer pressure of going, hey, I need players to play, but I don't like travel ball. I coach it because I can control the teams that I'm coaching.
Yep.
And I'm not an all win at all costs. I want the kid to know that their job's to win. My job's to show them the process, but it's also to control them from not putting themselves in harmful situations. Like, and that's one of them. Like, we had a kid that I coached who plays football for another school, and I find out that he's playing with us on weekends, but all week he's not been able to really get to do anything because he's got practices. And so now he's showing up on weekends and he's sore and he can't do things, and you're asking him to pitch, and he's like, he's beat up. You got to go, well, that's the point where you go, hey, you got to pick one, because I'm not telling you to specialize, but you can't go, hey, I'm going to go be a football player and play baseball, because the way you lift is different than the way you play baseball. And the longevity of these things kind of coexist, because you got 7-on-7s during the summer, and then you got travel ball, and then you've got these things. You're running, a bad circuit where you're never really prepared. And I think that's where specializing comes in that junior, senior year, to where you you see where the road's going to take you. But there is a point, and there are certain guys that, you go, wow, that guy's going to be really good. But we don't want to run out of runway too early and burn this kid out. I've got a 6'7" freshman lefty right now, and he's sophomore. Freshman, his 8th and 9th grade, I made him play basketball. Now, I don't think he really wanted to play basketball, but I made him go play. And, because you're tall and because he's lanky and he, doesn't have a lot of athleticism at that time. I mean, I think he's wearing size 16s. You're like, hey, you need to go figure out a bit about just body control, play, enjoy yourself. Well, those 2 years helped him to figure out that, hey, I love playing baseball. Now I control myself better. And so now he plays baseball. And he's a left-handed pitcher, 6'8", and his body he's figured out some things with his body. So when we lift and when we do these things, he has better control, and I ain't got to worry about him getting hurt. Plus, this kid's definitely going to be a tremendous player, but we don't want to burn him out. And so that when I'm coaching travel, I want to protect that kid, because it's real emphasis to go out there and watch this kid go out and throw 7 innings and dominate a team. And you can go, hey, man, you did your job. Let's get the other kid in and let him do his job. And so understanding that the process is bigger than the win, but the kid should never not think about winning. It's just the coach needs to go, my job's to control the narrative and let the kids play. And sometimes I've lost many a game by taking the kid out and putting another kid in. And, I know what could happen, but at the end of the day, nobody cares. And that's what you got to understand. And that's where parents have to understand that, these stats, these numbers, these rankings from Perfect Game and, PBR, that's just BS. That's a money grab. And you've got to get past that. Good players will always be there. And your road may not come at D1. You may not get that. You may have to go to JUCO, to Division III, 2, or whatever, and have that opportunity. But There's a place for you. If you're good enough, you'll find your way there.
Billy, I want to shift gears for a second and talk a little bit about pitching development for kids. You played, you threw 100 in an era where, I may be wrong on this, but it feels like you could count the number of guys on one hand.
Not many
that threw 100, and now kids are trying to throw upper 90s, in high school, and everybody's selling out for velocity. How do you coach your kids? What's the most important thing to develop? How did you get? There's a lot in here. How did you get your velocity and when? And how do you develop all that in a safe way?
Whew, yeah, there's a lot there. For me, I love playing multiple sports. I threw a football way more than I threw a baseball, but I did believe in throwing the football as far as I could throw the football and throwing the baseball as far. If I could have had my choice, I'd have been a quarterback, defensive back, and I'd have been the starting center fielder. That's what I enjoyed doing. I loved throwing the ball as far as I could and as hard as I could. That was how I got my velocity. I wasn't a big guy. I mean, my senior year, I was 5'5", 135 pounds coming out of high school, but I still threw firm. And the progression of maturity kind of helped me get to college. And then, I went from throwing low 80s to throwing low 90s to mid 90s, but it all came with that process of maturity and, just allowing my body to catch up, but always playing long toss. I'm a big advocate of long tossing. And I think that creates a lot of stability in your whole body. You can't do proper long toss if you can't have body control. And learning that was a big thing. So for the youth, I think what I still watch a numerous amount of kids do weird things through lessons. I mean,
well, hold on real quick. I don't want to interrupt you, but you told me the funniest thing the other day about the lessons, and I love it. Like, if you're going to the same person for 3 years, you got issues.
Oh, yeah. I'm sitting here going, man, I got to go back and get a lesson. I mean, I have more guys go get pitching lessons from people other than me. I don't do lessons. And I just sit there and they'll come back and they'll go, well, this guy, and I'll go, really? I mean, it's still baffling, but it is what it is. But my job, and I'll use what I've done with my son, who's a pitcher going to Coastal Carolina. I said, your job is to pitch to contact. I don't care how hard you throw. And if you really think you're that good, you dare the hitter to beat you. And then there's a point where the hitter is in a situation that he's fouled off 2 pitches and he's 0-2. Well, how did you get to 0-2? Right? Sometimes you just got to learn how to pitch. And it doesn't matter what your velocity, it matters where you're pitching. So we talk about pitching to contact. And so I don't get upset with the younger kids that are in the 8th, 9th, 10th real development in pitching, to say, you give up a hit 0-2. Well, okay, well, nobody wants to give up a hit 0-2. Nobody wants to strike out either. But it's the point of rewarding the guys for pitching so that the 7 people behind you can actually do something. And so it's their job to do. And so my development with my kids is like, we pitch in the strike zone, not in the high school strike zone. We pitch in the strike zone because I want you to go to college and know that you're not fearful of contact. Yeah, you're going to give up a home run. It's going to suck. You're also going to have the guy ragging you, or the pitching coach who really doesn't understand that, hey, I get it that your job's about winning, but you've forgotten how hard this game is to make that pitch on the corner but I want you to pitch the contact. I want you to have security knowing that you can throw strikes, because when you can throw strikes, guess what ends up happening? Now I'm relaxed. Now my velocity jumps because I'm not fearful of, I hope I can throw a strike, because we've all watched guys go out there and just throw the piss out of it. And it's 95 they're backing up third and balls are everywhere. But when you have real pitchability and they're sitting here doing these things, I think that it gives them comfort in knowing that they can do things without it had to be velocity driven. And I mean, I honestly never thought about how hard I threw. I worried more about just throwing strikes. And as I got older, it got easier because I had consistency to throw enough strikes that I could throw a ball or two or get behind the count and know I could throw a strike. And that's what I tell these kids, pitch to contact. And so our training is pitching in this zone. Now, we don't come out and just bang breaking balls all the time. You have to show that you can throw your one way more consistent than your twos and threes. So we work a lot of the hardest pitch that I have trouble helping guys develop is changeup. Because I've talked to Glavin, I talked to Hoffman, I talked to all these guys about the changeup because it's not a velocity pitch, and these guys just get so tore up about. Well, I need to throw this changeup to where it's just bottoming out, and you're getting a swing and miss. And I'm teaching these kids like, well, if you throw that and they swing and miss, you got to throw another pitch. The whole point is let's understand what we're trying to do. It's not about your individual stat and creating that mindset of, I want to see if I can go as long as I can on the least amount of pitches possible. If I can get you swing a first pitch, pop up, I'm going to do it again. And understanding that means you're good. Strikeouts are great in a point. But you've got to throw a lot of pitches, just like a home run hitter has to take a lot of swings to get a home run. A strikeout pitcher has to throw a lot of pitches, and it may not seem like a bad thing for the first couple times, but when you roll out in your third and fourth and fifth appearance, you're like, man, I'm a little tired. It doesn't work that easy, So, for me, we really try to talk about our kids pitching in the strike zone. I don't care if you give up a home run. I don't want to give up runs. I don't want to lose the same as you do. But I also understand that failure in this sport is the only way you'll have success. And so you understand that these things are happening. You'll make your adjustments. And so failure for me with our pitching staff is something that I preach to not worry about. We go down to Florida to start our season off every year. We start out with Tampa Jesuit, Stoneman Douglas, West Broward, and then we had North Broward Prep. We go out there, we come back, we're 0-4. And I mean, but our guys are understanding the speed of the game, and they understand that failure is a part of this. Now when we get back to Virginia, we've had good luck, and we'll go like 34-2. And so there's a difference in what you're trying to preach to these kids that, well, coach is not taking me out if I give up a run. Coach isn't taking me out if I make an error. Coach is not taking me out if I have bad swings. No, I'm giving you room. I'm letting you play to get your feet. And you also learn all these things as a pitcher that I can be really bad early. And as I get more confidence to get into the warmer weather, I feel better. I'm understanding how to pitch with my stuff because, I think everybody's got to they feel like they got to be so perfect so early that, you get all these kids out there just really trying to throw 90 plus, but they can't throw strikes, and instead of working into it and get a feel. And so, I think I've taught kids the way I wish I would have been taught, that, you didn't have to throw hard to be accepted. And I think velocity is what we try. All these kids are worried about because then everybody feels like they're accepted that, oh, well, you can pitch at this level because you throw this hard. But it's really, they forgot that you get to pitch at these levels when you get people out. Not because your stuff and your numbers say that you should. There's a lot of guys that I came up in the minor leagues and in college that could throw hard, but they couldn't get people out. So, the goal is still get people out and do your job.
This is like a master class, right?
Yeah,
I love it.
Good.
Great stuff. We can't go on without asking you to tell a little bit about your story. I mean, growing up, we always usually get that first, but we just got so much into this great stuff. But I mean, how do you think you made it out of your childhood and your tough environment to where you are today? Because can you talk a little bit about that first, and then how do you think that you were able to, like you said, get by after day, and then end up where you are today?
Well, there's only one person that knows that, and that's God Almighty. Because there's no way I should be, anywhere in this realm without what his purpose. And so my pedestal and what he's given me is to be able to talk on behalf of the late bloomers and the people that have been said, you can't do this or you never will be kind of guy. So I give all that credit to God, because I know that he put me in a situation to do the unusual. I'm not your norm. I'm not the guy that, I'm probably, if I walk out right now, I'm the least recognizable Hall of Famer. I could walk anywhere and nobody, they go, well, who are you?
I don't know. Greg Maddox is up there with you with that.
Yeah.
I think,
I think that's awesome.
It's
though.
funny.
I think that's awesome.
Chili Davis said that, like, I was young into my career. We're in Kansas City, and it's bagging me and Biggio sitting on the bench before the game, and Chili comes over and he's talking to us, and I never said a word to him. I don't know him. I don't, I'm not, just keep your mouth shut kind of thing. Well, I'm sitting there, and next thing I know, he goes to, I end up facing him that night, and I strike him out. Well, the other night he's talking, he goes, I thought you were a clubhouse kid or the boy. And so, but those are the things. But I think that's why, and that's the reason my high school coach was just a tremendous man. My college coach was awesome, but they loved kids. They loved developing. They loved the process. They loved winning, of course. But I think that's what drove me. I think that was sort of God's purpose for me, is to be in young people's lives, to sit there and show them that there is, you ain't got to be the biggest, there's a place for all of us. And, just being there for those kids to have some understanding about what's really important, that even if you play 16 years in the big leagues, your career is going to come over. It's going to end. And to know that, that these things, there is a higher purpose. But there's no rhyme or reason why, a naturally right-handed kid goes out and breaks his right arm twice in his grandmother's front yard and on monkey bars at 7 years old, and then, ends up being left-handed and throwing, going on to throw hard with his non-dominant hand. But I think that's the reason. I think God showed, through my story what is possible. And so when people ask me that, there is no common story for that. It's just, what God shows you the impossible by doing the impossible. And so that's why I'm here today.
Man, that's so cool. And what's cool about that too is that God used coaches in your life as a young man to do that. And you're doing the same thing with kids now. And what a great lesson for coaches and the impact and the influence they have on young kids' lives.
Well, I love it too. And, we had Ernie Johnson on here, and I'll never forget. And I think about him all the time when I coach, because I remember him just saying, you got to find value in every kid on your team. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about with like parents, let them find your kid's value. It might not be the best player on the team, the Friday night starter, but if you coach right, every kid's going to feel like they have a purpose.
Well, when I have so many kids, when we go to parent-teacher conferences, that's what we want from our teacher, is the teacher to know your kid. Yeah. And it's the same thing with a coach, is you want the coach to sit there and say, I see this really unique. It may not be that they're fastest or the strongest, but man, your kid is coachable, like we talk about, or your kid's a great teammate, or your kid is so good in the clutch. And that's all parents want to hear, that you care about their kid and that you know their kid. And that goes for coaches as well as teachers.
Well, and I think you want them all to be successful, right? I think that's the biggest thing. I want your kid to be successful. And a good coach is trying to find out, how do I put this person in a successful situation? Now, the kid's got to perform. Everybody knows these things. But, there's certain guys you go, I know you can't score from second base on a single. I know these things, but I want to put you in a situation that there is value to who you are. And it's not always on the field. And I think, when we're talking about our educators doing the same, the value is to make those kids be successful. So there's not one way or the highway type of coaching. And, the good coaches find a way to coach every kid differently to their strengths, to their language, and create those types of, success rates. And that's what you're trying to do. And that's all I want to do, is make these kids have the opportunity, find the love of the game, play it forward, and find what it means to not overthink the situation that we've created socially about all these sports.
Were you talking about BMAC scoring from second base? Is that what that he can't?
I didn't want to say names. I did not want to say names.
So finishing up here, I want to ask my last question, but I have one of my favorite stories in all of baseball. And I don't even know if I've shared y'all this before. 2007, we're in Port St. Lucie for a spring training game, and it was Billy's first time pitching. Might have been like March 3rd or 4th. And he was throwing legitimately like 89 miles per hour, 90. Like, it didn't matter. And Jared Saltalamacchia, remember the switch hitter for the Braves, young kid, comes up and hits a bomb off Billy, like over the scoreboard in Port St. Lucie. And he comes in and he sits down next to me and he says, "What's all the fuss about this guy?" He said, I didn't think his stuff was that great. And so I just let him have his moment in the sun. I'm like, I'm not going to say that he doesn't care. It's his first thing of spring training.
Right.
So we go up to Shea Stadium in May, and BMAC is on the DL. I actually got him ran over by Eric Burns in Arizona with a high throw. So he was out. So Salty comes up, and it's the 9th inning, and we were down 1. Someone got on first base, and Salty goes up to hit with 2 outs. And Billy strikes him out on 3 pitches. I'm talking blows his doors off and just dominates him. And so, they start playing the song up there and everything. And everybody leaves the dugout, and I'm sitting there, and Salty comes in and starts putting his catching gear up. And, I was waiting because I didn't want any coaches around. I wanted to wait till everybody kind of left. I looked at him and I said, a little different than early March in Port St. Lucie, dude. And he dropped about 5 F-bombs on me and was so mad, but it was always so great because I'll never forget that. He was like just calling him out. So my last question for you, because you threw 100 miles per hour. We have a lot of kids in here, not just in baseball, but in any sport, undersized, not the strongest, not the biggest. What's your advice to those kids as they make their journey to high school?
Well, exactly that. I think it's a journey. I don't think day one you have to be ready. I think, they have to understand where they're at. And it is frustrating. I mean, there's nothing worse walking into, a freshman walking in to high school and being undersized and looking up and seeing what's ahead of him with the senior who's 6'5", 225 and runs like a deer and throws, all these things. It's so overwhelming. But I think what they don't get to see is that kid was 5'8", 135 pounds, and it took him the process and journey to get to where he's at. I don't want to coach a finished product. I think I want to coach the kid and give him the foundation and let them work in. And so I think, it's great if I can, have kids that are really talented early and they can do something, but they're still, you don't want them to be a finished product. And so I enjoy coaching. If I could, I would probably coach more JV games than I do, because I enjoy watching the kid, do the little things. And so you preach the little things. And so you're always talking about the kid who runs the bases correctly, who hits the cutoff man, who throws strikes. Those are the guys you're always looking for. And it's not the guy who always throws hard or hits home runs or runs like a deer, because a lot of those guys, when they get there early, they may be fast, but they can't run bases. They don't know what they're doing. If they have a really good arm, they don't know where it's going. If they're super strong, then they're not willing to learn the process of going, hey, listen, I need you to go backside. I need you to learn the whole field, because it's like, well, I hit home runs. And so, the process is a 4-year process to get to your next step, not I'm finished product, I'm ready to go, I can play at the D1 level and I'm super. No, I want that level for these kids when they come in to just be a gradual climb, so that they can see the progression, not be overwhelmed more than they already are, and just enjoy what they're doing. But, it's really tough for that. I have kids come in 8th and 9th graders, they're 5'5", they're rolling in, and I've got seniors that are the monsters, and, we've prepared them to go play the Stoneman Douglas, the guys that are these types of players. But, the process has to be, gradual for some. And there's guys, I've had guys who've been, super little going into their senior year, and all of a sudden they come back from that month break and they're 6'1", 185, and you're like, holy cow. And he goes, yeah. He goes, and their backs are all sore and all because they've had this growth spurt. And so every kid grows and learns at a different stage. And if we can't force these guys to do it. And so I like coaching the younger players. I enjoyed that. I enjoy going through that journey with them because, I love being able to go, hey, I know how you feel. I know what it looks like. I know that it looks uphill right now, but listen, that is the part that you're buying in for. You're buying in to go uphill so you can see the battle. You'll figure this out. It may not happen today, but I think the journey has to be told to them that it is a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and they have to be able to enjoy that. And as a coach, that's what coaching is. It's not always X's and O's. It's about hey, you got this. Don't overthink it. Let's just work on doing the little things and the fundamentals, and that'll get you to where you want to be.
That's good stuff, Billy. I got one final question, and it's a hypothetical. And so I want to know what your thoughts are. So you're on the mound, bottom of the ninth. You're up a run, bases loaded. Jeff Rancour comes to the plate. How are you pitching him?
Well, it's no secret. It's no secret. I mean, it's really about who's going to be luckiest because I'm going to throw fastballs and I'm probably going to throw a cheesy breaking ball. And if I get lucky enough that he fouls off enough fastballs, maybe I'll get lucky on a breaking ball. But Brinchy, I think you took me deep. Didn't you take me deep in?
Billy, you might not remember this, but one of the coolest moments of my career was when we switched teams and I went to New York and you came to Atlanta. And you knew how difficult it was on me because I didn't leave Atlanta in the greatest little thing. And we were tied 1-1 in the top of the ninth, and I took you Oppo Taco at Turner Field.
Yeah, that's right.
But walking on the tunnel after the game, Billy sought me out and said, dude, that was a pretty cool moment for you. And that happened that night.
That's cool.
And he,
this game's hard. And, the thing that my college coach said to me that I thought was probably one of the greatest thing is enjoy other people's success. Learning to enjoy. Now, was that a good night for me? Heck no, that sucked every bit of it. But point being is that, you know what? We can't always shine in that moment. Yeah. We're not always going to shine. My efforts there, I made the pitch I thought I should have made. He makes a great swing. Let's walk off. You know what? The next night, if we faced, then guess what? You know what? I make a different pitch. Or you did
punch me out 2 nights later.
So, I mean, it's just those games, but that's that's knowing the game. And I also will tell you this, when you play for Bobby Cox, completely different giving up a 1 run than playing in that New York environment, giving up that 1 run. You give up that 1 run in New York and you're front page. Wagner blows it again. He's terrible. Oh my God, get rid of him. Where you blow that save, and you battled, Bobby Cox is going to come out. You're not going to hear anything. Because I remember Bobby going, you know what? I thought he made a good pitch right there. He just put a good swing on it.
Yep.
Hey.
If anything, Bobby would say, you know what? It's my fault. I've overused Wags the last 3-4 days.
I mean,
that's
crazy
why
how the difference is. And it's just crazy because all of a sudden you're like, what? Yeah, I'll play. Yeah, you want me to throw again? You want me to throw 2 innings? Yeah, absolutely. I'm all in. And you're doing it because that guy takes the pressure off of you to sit there. It's like when you're playing in high school and you lose in the state championship and you get that interview and you're sitting there you just go, man, I'm really proud of them. They played so hard. It is a grind. That's the coach's job to deflect and give them credit because they know how hard it is. And I mean, not many managers and coaches are willing to sit there and really say those things because they think the win is all encompassing, but it's really, the relationship. And that's what I think about with the relationships with my managers, my high school and college coaches, is that if I could call them today, they would be just the same. They weren't any different. And so, I've given up a fair share of home runs.
More strikeouts than saves than that. What, 416 saves?
22.
22. Sorry.
Who's counting?
You can't
That's all
shortchange.
right. Wait, who's counting?
You can't shortchange those guys, man. That's what I always say.
On the plaque.
I'd be the same way.
Well, Billy, we appreciate you, man. What you do for youth sports, especially baseball, and continuing to pour back in. It's pretty awesome.
Well, back at it. I love listening to you guys. I think you do great things for youth sports, and I'm gonna be with you a lot, trying to get you involved with more of the ABCA and coaching youth and helping us straighten out some of these myths that everybody thinks we've got going on.
Exactly. Well, thank you, man.
Billy, thanks so much.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Billy.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. It's good to see you.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more videos from us right here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a thing. Follow us on social media at Pure Athlete Inc. for even more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.